Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. Today I'm going to discuss on ecology, emphasize on the subtopic 2.4 conservation and management. After watching this lesson, you should be able to describe the sustainable development, sustainable forestry, agriculture and fisheries, and also explain threats to biodiversity in Malaysia and illustrate the conservation of diversity in Malaysia. Okay, before we go further on the sustainable developments in Malaysia, I want to ask you, what is development and what is sustainable development? Development is man's effort to achieve the progress in various fields to improve the quality of life. Right? For example, developments in logging and agriculture. So, how about sustainable development? Sustainable development is developments that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Development can continue but must be planned or managed to minimize the environmental damage. In context of Malaysia, this lesson we will discuss on the sustainable management in forestry, agriculture and fisheries. Okay, let's look at the sustainable forestry. Sustainable forest management ensures that forest resources are preserved to meet the needs of future generations. So, let's look at some ways that might practice sustainable forestry. First one is establish the forest reserve to avoid destruction of existing forests. So the example of reserve forest in Malaysia is the Malaysia National Park at Taman Negara Pahang, Gunung Ledang National Park right near to us, Bukit Dinding, Ampang Forest Reserve and many more. Okay, second one is the reforestation. Okay, so reforestation meaning plant a new trees. How and why reforestation is important? Okay, if you cut down the older trees, okay, you must plant a new trees back. Okay, all right. Third one is the retention of seed trees. Right, so the retention of seed trees can be done by taking care of plant species to allow regeneration of a new trees. Okay, that will both provide the types of timber wanted and fits into the forest ecosystem. Okay, the fourth one, strip cutting. Alright, so strip cutting is a very good alternative to clear cutting. Right? Strip cutting maintains the biodiversity of the land than their clear cutting does. So, a better alternative to do strip cutting is to cut a small strip of land and then plant, okay, and then plant more trees back. Why? To avoid erosion at slopes. Okay, last one is the strip, okay, cutting limits, alright? Cutting limit, it means that only selected matured trees are cut, right? So the forest managers determine what can be harvested from the forest and in what amounts, right? So the sustainable forestry, actually their goal is to harvest timber, right, in a way that does not destroy the overall health of the forest. Okay, right, then we move to the second one, the sustainable agriculture. Alright, so the sustainable agriculture is using the farming practices, right, considering the ecological cycle. So actually, sustainable agriculture is a types of agriculture that focus on producing long-term crops and livestock while having minimal effects on the environment. So there are many farming strategies, right, that are used that help make the agriculture more sustainable, right? So for example, first one is the crop rotation, right? So what is crop rotation? Okay, crop rotation is grow different types of plants for a different periods of time on the same land, right? Okay, so this is the crop rotation. And then second one is the row planting. Row planting involves growing seeds in straight line. Different types of plants in different alternate row or strips. Alright, so row planting is the traditional way of planting vegetables, crops, and trees. Alright. Okay, the third one is the use biological pest control, okay, instead of chemical pesticide. So another ways of practicing the sustainable agriculture is use organic manure as fertilizer to avoid the synthetic fertilizer. Then the contour farming. Okay, the contour farming is the practicing of tiling at right angle to the slope of the land to create a series of ridge. Alright, and each ridge acts to hold water from running down the slopes, and also the contour farming will slow the flow of water to prevent the soil erosion. Okay, alright, so this is the diagrams of the contour farming. Okay, alright, then we move to the last one, terracing. Actually, terracing as a best management practice for controlling erosion and protecting water quality. Alright, okay, so alright, so the terracing widely used in country that has a little flat lands. Okay, alright. Okay, that's it for the sustainable agriculture, and we move to the last management of the sustainable. Okay, we move to next, sustainable fisheries. Alright, so sustainable fishing means leaving enough fish in the ocean, respecting habitats, and ensuring people who depend on fishing can maintain their livelihoods. This ensures that the habitats of fishes and coral reef are not destroyed in the process of fishing. So we can conclude that sustainable fisheries is the practice of sustainable fishing to leave a large enough population of fish in the sea and to protect their habitat. There are many strategies that are used that help make marine life more sustainable. Right? The strategies are as follows. Okay, look at for the first one, establish a marine park. Okay, for example, marine park in Malaysia, Tun Sakaran Marine Park in Sempurna, Sabah, Pulau Paya Marine Park in Langkawi, Kedah, Tun Mustafa Marine Park in Sabah, across the Kudat, Pitas and Kota Marudu. Right. So next, close season. So what is close season? Okay, the close season actually is a period of the year when it is prohibited to kill certain types of fish. For example, fishing is not allowed during breeding seasons. Okay. Then use minimum net or mesh size. Use mesh size about 10 to 20 millimeter bar size according to the fish to be caught. Let the large and juvenile fish can escape. Okay. Another strategies is the exclusion zone. Okay, where fishing is completely banned. Right. Next, rehabilitation. Okay, also include the artificial reef. Okay. Then prohibit distraction fishing gear and methods. For example, avoid explosive fishing. And then enhance aquaculture. Okay, to breed aquatic species in control or selected aquatic environment to meet increasing needs. Right, so this is the example of strategies to maintain the sustainable fisheries. Okay, beside that, tagal system. Okay, tagal system means do not in bahasa Melayu it means dilarang menangkap ikan. Okay, the tagal system is actually a smart partnership system between the community and authority. Okay, for example, between the Jabatan Perikanan Sabah. Alright. Taga system is used to protect, restore, okay, to protect, to restore and manage fisheries resources. Alright, for example, ikan kelah merah, red mussel, empurau. Alright. Okay, then river is classified, okay, into different zone. For example, red fishing is strictly prohibited. Yellow allowed only 3 times a year. Okay, green allowed throughout the year. So this is the how the tagal systems operate. Okay, now we will continue on the threats to biodiversity in Malaysia. It is estimated that current rate of species extinction is between 1,000 to 10,000 times more rapid than the average rate. Alright, so there are many threats to biodiversity today. Okay, the biggest one can be remembered by using the acronym HIPPO. H for habitat loss, I invasive species, P for pollution, another P for human population, and the O over harvesting. Okay, so how to overcome these threats? So the solution is to manage our system by conservation and preservation. So, what is meant by conservation and preservation? Conservation is the management and sensible use of natural resources in order to avoid excessive degradation of the environment and sustain biodiversity at all levels. In other words, a proper use of nature. And preservation is the complete protection of species in order to maintain them in their current state without the capacity to change. Okay, by protect nature from being used. We are currently experiencing mass extinction of leatherback turtle, or in bahasa we call it penyu belimbing. So, leatherback turtles are named for their shell, which is leather like rather than hard, like other turtle. Okay, they are the largest sea turtle species. Okay, leatherback turtles are hunted in some area for the beautiful carapace. right? So carapace is a top shell that has 7 longitudinal ridge. Okay, the color is black with white dots. So you can refer to these diagrams, how the leatherback turtles look like. So this leatherback turtle fulfill important roles in marine ecosystem. As a major jellyfish predator, it provides natural ecological control of jellyfish population. So that's why the main diet for this leatherback turtle is a jellyfish. The overabundance of jellyfish may reduce fish population, as jellyfish can feed on fish larvae and reduce the population growth of commercial important fish. Right? Okay, so this is the food chain of the leatherback turtle. Okay. Alright, so the leatherback turtle can survive more than 30 years. Okay, but now it facing extinction. Okay, and the status is critically endangered species. The leatherback turtle nests primarily on Terengganu beaches. Okay, in Malaysia, in Rantau Abang lah. Okay, Rantau Abang is used to be its nesting area. Okay, next, when matured, leatherback turtle return to its birthplace to lay egg in 2 to 8 years cycle. Female leatherback turtle lay egg approximately 50 to 180 egg in a nesting season. Okay, nest temperature varies, meaning the temperature of their nest will decide the sex of the baby leatherback turtle. When the egg hatch at low temperature, the hatching will be male, but at higher temperature, the hatching will likely turn female. Okay, when hatching emerge at night, they head towards seawater unless disoriented by artificial lights. The problems it will caught in trawl nets, its exploitation, pollution of sea water, trash in sea. Alright, so I want to ask you, what do sea turtle eat actually? Unfortunately, plastic bag. Right? Okay. So the leatherback turtle is considered as endangered because it reduced from 2,000 nesting male in 1980 to fewer than 5 year in year 2000. Okay, all right. Okay, another endangered species is the milky stork, okay, or burung upih. It is a large wading bird. It also has a red face, okay, a creamy white body, and long shining green black tail and flight feathers. It also has a long straight pointed bill. Okay, in mating season, face and leg will turn bright red and the bill will turn bright orange. Conservation status for this species is endangered. Okay, it is currently considered endangered bird species in Malaysia. So milky stork can be seen only between 60 to 100 birds, okay, along mud flats in Matang mangrove forest near Taiping in Kuala Gula. Okay. And then the milky stork feeds on worms, snakes and crabs. So as I did mention earlier, the milky stork is only found at the Matang mangrove forest near Taiping in Perak. Right, so it make nests on tall trees between October to December each year. It lay 1 to 4 eggs per season and the incubation time is 1 month. Young stock still needs their parents to provide food for them. And a big problem for milky stork was loss of coastal habitats due to logging and farming, hunted and trade for food, okay, by human. Okay, next species, we look at the sleeper orchid. In scientific names, Paphiopellidium species. This sleeper orchid should be conserved, okay, due to habitat loss and collected by people for medicine and ornamental. Alright, so many believe that sleeper orchids are the most stunning orchid. Alright, so this is the picture of the sleeper orchid, which is considered as endangered orchid in Kinabalu Park. Okay, so this orchid takes about 15 years to grow and bloom. Okay, if you are interested reading facts about the endangered species as we discussed in this lecture, please Google it from the internet. So there are many cool facts and very interesting facts. Okay, so many. Alright, so that's it for the threats to biodiversity. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to explain biotic potential and environmental resistance and their effect on population growth, Next, explain carrying capacity and its importance, and describe natality and mortality and their effect on the rate on population growth. Alright, so the D and E will cover, okay, during your tutorial class. Okay, so there are several terms that we have to know in this topic, such as population ecology. Population ecology. In population ecology, there are many more terms. For example, population growth, biotic potential, environmental resistance, carrying capacity, natality, mortality. Okay, all right. So, what is population? What is ecology? And what is population ecology? So, depopulation is a group of individuals of the same species that live together in the same place at the same time. Right? So, while ecology is the study of interaction between organisms and their environment. Then how about the population ecology? Population ecology is a subfield of ecology, okay, that studies the dynamic of population and how this population interact with the environment. Okay, right. Okay, population growth. Population growth is the increase in the number of individuals in a population. Okay, meaning the difference between the rate of birth and death, okay, in a given time. Okay, next we move to biotic potential. So, what is biotic potential? Okay, so the biotic potential symbol is R, okay, small letter R, is the maximum growth rate of a population under ideal conditions, meaning the ability of a population to increase under ideal environmental condition. Okay, sufficient of food, no predator, and lack of disease. So the biotic potential, also known as intrinsic rate of increase, okay, are maximum. Okay, biotic potential allow maximum birth rate and minimum death rate. Okay, this will causes a rapid increase of growth, and the population size increase exponentially. Okay, the growth curve has a J-shaped curve or exponential growth curve. Okay, biotic potential is influenced by intrinsic factors. The example of intrinsic factors, okay, involve the beginning age of reproduction, number of offspring produced at each time, and how often individual can reproduce per lifetime. So these factors is the biological ability, okay, to produce offspring that determine the maximum rate it can reproduce. Okay, all right. Okay, look at the beginning age of production for different types of species. For example, bacteria, the beginning age of reproduction is 8 minutes, fruit flies 14 days, and redwoods almost 100 years, right? Okay, we proceed with this one. Okay, biotic potential cannot be maintained. Okay, when the population size increases, they will run out of limited resources. Okay, for example, food, water, oxygen, or space. So this factor, or all these factors, will limit the population growth, which call the environmental resistance. Okay, so we move to the environmental resistance. So what is the environmental resistance? Environmental resistance is a factors or things that restrict the growth of a population. Environmental resistance includes all factors that prevent a population from continually growing to reach its biotic potential. And biotic potential tends to keep population at constant level. So the environmental resistance include both biotic and abiotic factors. Here are some examples of environmental resistance. Okay, limited foods, predation, water supply. Okay, other example, disease, light, which is particularly important for plants. On the other hand, environmental resistance is a force that pushes down on a growth curve. The balance between biotic potential and environmental resistance causes the population size to reach a steady level. Look at this graph. The environmental resistance causes the population of growth to be S-shaped, right? So this determines the carrying capacity of a species. Okay, the environmental resistance causing the population growth curve to be S-shaped curve. All right. Okay, so now we move to the next, which is the carrying capacity. All right. Okay, next we move to carrying capacity. So carrying capacity is the maximum number of individuals in a population that can be supported by a particular environment. So the population lives in an area with limited resources, for example, food, shelter, right? When the population growth is low and reach a nearly steady level, so the carrying capacity is achieved. Alright, so this is shown by the equilibrium phase of the S-shaped growth curve. Right, so when you look at this one, okay, this is the carrying capacity, the yellow one line. Okay, normally is indicated by a dotted line. This one. So the effects of the carrying capacity on population is dynamic, right? So there are several factors that determine carrying capacities. Okay, for example, the amount of resources available. Okay, amount of resources each individual is consuming and how long the resources can be renewed. Is the carrying capacity is important in ecosystem? The answer is yes. Okay, carrying capacity is important in ecosystem management because it determines the size of population that can be supported by an ecosystem. Okay, and as an indirect measure of the maximum level of stress that the ecosystem can withstand. Okay, all right. So we move to the last part, okay, to be discussed is the natality and mortality. So, what is the definition of both natality and mortality? So, natality is birth rate, while mortality is death rate. Alright. So, natality, number of offspring produced over a period of time. If the natality rate increases, the population growth also increase. If natality rate decrease, population growth decrease. But for the mortality, is the number of individuals die over a period of time. If mortality rate increases, the population growth decreases. If the mortality rate decrease, the population is growth. Okay, so if immigration and emigration are ignored, okay, population growth rate equal to birth rate minus death rate. Okay, so we finish our lesson on 2.5 and we'll continue the several learning outcome, okay, in the tutorial class. And with that, thank you for listening. See you soon.